I've done all of Brighton.
Hello there, you loose units, and welcome back to another episode of Spicy Boy Reviews. I'm, of course, your host, Andrew Iles. Hope you've been looking after yourselves, looking after each other, pulling your heads in and all that jazz. Welcome back. Here we are again with another Marvel film, because God knows we need another one. It is the long-awaited film. We're going to get straight into it with this review of the solo film for Black Widow. Natasha Rominov is back from where we last saw her. No, not at the bottom of a cliff. This is post-Civil War, of course. We discover about the Black Widow's past and how she had a family for a couple of years, then became an assassin. Then, of course, a shitload of Avengers stuff ensues in between, and then we backtrack to a solo movie that is severely overdue. Don't know why they gave that outspoken sourpuss with a Karen haircut her own movie first, instead of a fan-beloved kick-ass female hero, but here we are, finally, with Black Widow. Here we are, finally, Black Widow, the solo film that we've been waiting for so bloody long. It's directed by Kate Shortland, who is an Australian from Sydney, I believe. She's directed a bunch of TV shows, only a couple of feature films, one being Somersault, which is an indie-Australian film that kick-started Abby Cornish and Sam Worthington's career. This film is obviously a prequel. No spoilers, but if you haven't seen Endgame yet, then why are you even here? Go see it. This is obviously set before that, which is right after Civil War. So that's why, yes, ScarJo is back. She's back in the character that she'll most likely be remembered for the rest of her days by nerds everywhere around the world. I believe she'll go down in history as one of the greatest heroines of all time. She's in great company with the Princess Leias, the Lieutenant Ripleys, and the Sarah Connors. Take a bow, ScarJo, you've bloody well earned it. She's such a phenomenal actor. I think it just goes without saying. You all know that by now. Yeah, she's such a good actor. Again, don't just base that on her Marvel appearances. No. Go back to her back catalogue, her young years, but also, for goodness sake, a perfect 5-star performance from her is Marriage Story. See that if you can. This film, we get a little bit of backstory about Natasha Rominov. Before she was recruited to become an assassin or a part of the Black Widow thing, whatever, before she became that. And then, we get a bit of backstory before the opening credits as well. And then we all know what happens after that, of course, to become Black Widow. She's obviously bitten by a radioactive Black Widow spider and then gains its powers of wearing tight knit black cat suits. She becomes very good at shooting guns and an expert at jiu-jitsu. The beginning of the film had a very indie handheld independent film vibe, which was quite surprising. I remember when the film started getting into it, I was like, oh, hang on, wait a minute, is this an actual movie? And that sort of vibe stayed pretty much the majority of the way through the film until the ending, of course, when it full-blown marvels the bed. But we'll get into that later. But it had a very indie handheld vibe, and looking at the director and their previous work, it makes a lot of sense. The film definitely tries to have more of a serious tone than previous Marvel installments, and getting really sappy at times, almost to the point of annoyance, I'll be blatantly honest there. But don't worry, the old Marvel chuckle farm starts before you even know it. Before you know it, we're going to get these snappy, quippy quips that you can quip home about. And I don't know if you've been keeping up to date with the Marvel-verse or what's been happening on streaming services and whatnot. I mean, they're really going down the super soldier serum a lot lately. And of course, what else is Black Widow going to fight against besides super soldiers? She can't really tackle a Loki or Thanos level villain. Even one character stating that one of the bigger Avengers can tackle that kind of thing. The movie jumps around a bit, I'll be honest. It just shifts around. There was a couple of points where I'm like, hang on, what's happening? Where are we going? What's the MacGuffin? What's the thing we need? And blah, blah, blah. So it does jump around a bit. It's a bit of a slow burn at the start as well. Not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, but in a Marvel film, it's a little over 2 hours long. It's a bit like, all right, let's keep things moving a little bit. And the movie does finally get moving, but yeah, it's a bit slow paced to begin with. I remember in an interview once, Matt Damon promoting one of the Jason Bourne films, that he described action films a lot like porno movies, in the same vein as saying there's action, then there's talking, action, then talking, action, then talking, and that's pretty much exactly how this film is structured. Okay, there's a bit of action, then talking, then talking, then I've always said that if you're going to make a Black Widow film, all you have to do, simple as possible, is make a Marvel version of a James Bond movie. And that's almost pretty much what we get here. There was a lot of stuff sort of early and mid-on in the film that felt very James Bond. When they go to Budapest and stuff, it was almost half James Bond, half Jason Bourne at one point. But yeah, the James Bond is strong with this one. There's James Bond being watched on a laptop by Romanov herself and quoting it, and I suppose she's a James Bond fan. There's a Bond actress who makes a little surprise cameo in this film. It even stars the wife of the current James Bond. And even the villain's plot is straight out of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And in this film, our version of Blofeld has an army of female assassins who are brainwashed and programmed to kill at will, which is no fault of their own. There's even a pseudo-Q character here, I think he's an arms dealer or something, that helps Black Widow out and her pals here and there with flying apparatus and weapons and stuff like that. But yeah, it's very much a Q vibe. Dan Harbour and Lawrence Pugh are amazing. Every scene that they're in, they make it their own. They had the best dialogue, the funniest quips they'd ever quipped, and yeah, they also had the heart moments as well, the heavy moments. And yeah, they steal the show. It's almost their movie, and I'll be sure as shit to get their action figures when they hit the shelves. Of course, there's the obligatory bad henchman that is just misunderstood. Not necessarily, starts off as a bad guy, not necessarily a bad guy. I didn't really know much about the origins of Taskmaster. That's a name. I'm sure that's a name that Karens everywhere is giving themselves to shit their kids. But from what I've heard from fans, that if you're a fan of Taskmaster, don't get excited. Of course, the third act goes full-blown Marvel CGI bukkake party. And everything wraps up in a nice little bow, a little bit too conveniently. It all just happens, and then it all gets wrapped up with a little button put on the end. No one really seems to be at fault here or taking responsibility for the murders that happened in this film, except for the big baddie who's this film's version of Blofeld. At one point, there was even a Death Star moment, and by that you've probably heard the thing in Clerks or whatever. When the Death Star blows up, everyone on board fucking dies, okay? Like, yeah, everyone's dead, like cleaners, henchmen, plumbers, caterers. All these people, they're blown up with the Death Star, and the same thing happens here with the big baddie hideout. And they're just like, oh, so even if they weren't bad and they were just like contract workers, they're fucking dead now. Everyone's dead, but that's all right. We don't linger on it too long because there's a nice little funny quip moment straight after. He made a funny, what dead people? A side note in spy films that I've noticed in cinema as well is that a spy always like hides a gun or a weapon underneath some furniture or in a building or an apartment block or whatever, obviously many years prior, and then comes back and collects that when they're in a bit of spot of bother, when they're in a sticky situation. But I've always wondered, what happens if someone moved the furniture? What happens if someone sold the couch or whatever it is? What if the building got demolished? What if a kid found the gun or knife or whatever it is you hid years prior? That's something that's always popped in my head. I mean, of course, it's never going to be shown in a serious action film, but maybe a spy parody I'd like to see. But that's always something that's sat with me for a while. I've always questioned, like, what if someone found that gun underneath that dressing table? Anyway, just a thought. Yeah, that's Black Widow, guys, in a nutshell. That's it. Is it a little too late? Yeah, I'd say so. Not just because of obvious reasons, because of what happened in Endgame, but obviously, like, Black Widow is one of the best characters in the Marvel Universe. She was like the third one to pop up. You know, you had Iron Man, then you had Hulk, and then Black Widow popped up in Iron Man 2. So she's been there from the fucking beginning, and only now she gets her own movie, and not a great one either. I'll be honest, I wasn't a massive fan of this film. It was just a bit of nothing, and also the tension was removed because you go like, well, she's not going to die because it's a prequel. And where they can't go too heavy into these other characters because they have to kind of hide them away or make excuses for why they're not in the later films. And it's just a bit of backtracking that I'm not a huge fan of, and it could have been better. It could have been a lot better, and again, as I said before, could have been sooner, because I think Scarlett Johansson deserved her own movie. She deserved her own fucking trilogy, honestly. She's one of my favourite characters in the MCU, and yeah, and it was a bit of her swan song is a bit more of an ugly duckling. Anyway, guys, that's my review of Black Widow. You've probably already seen it. If you haven't, look, go see it, because it's got some funny moments and the supporting cast are pretty good. But yeah, just keep your expectations low, especially if you're a fan of Taskmaster. Anyway, guys, that's it. Yes, please give this episode a like if you could. We love your support here because we are an independent channel. We don't have sponsors or anything like that. No bells and whistles. It's just me and my fiance doing all this because we love each other and we love movies and you. And of course, please click that subscribe icon because we give out episodes weekly. So there's much more spicy content to come, and there's much more spicy content in the past, so go look at the back catalogue, but please hit that subscribe icon. Yeah, we love your support. And yeah, write down below, what is your favourite Marvel film or your favourite Scarlett Johansson movie? She's got a butt ton, and she's awesome. And that's it, guys. I'll see you next time, and as always, stay spooky.